and revenue generation. Later on, he worked with some Fortune top 500 companies, including DHL, Tata, and Reliance, which gave him exposure to strategic key account management, B2B and B2C collections, solution sale, institutional sale, B2B sales, forecasting, account receivables and payable international business development, market trend, reviews, pricing models, cost benefit analysis, and continuous process improvement. He has excelled both as an individual contributor and in team leadership roles. While with DULSCO and Desert Line projects, Mr. Rakesh was a part of senior management team for UAE, Qatar, and Kuwait operations. His responsibilities included monitoring accounts to identify overdue payments, instigate historical data for each debt or bill, find and contact clients to ask about their overdue payments, take action to encourage timely debt payment, process payment and refunds, resolve bill and customer credit issues, finding and contacting debtors to arrange debt payoff, keeping accurate records and reporting on collection activity. I would also like to tell some specialization that Sir holds. He's specialized in soft skills, life skills, behavior skills, leadership, team building. That is one of the forte that Sir holds. Team strategies, sales mentoring, sales usually guide students and many corporates on. Inbound marketing, digital marketing, and customer engagement management. These were some of the achievements that Sir holds. Also, I would like to tell some associations. Sir is a member of Madras Management Association, along with member of NHRD Chennai chapter, life member Coimbatore Productivity Council, and life member of ISTD Chennai chapter. That was the introduction of Mr. Rakesh Gopinathan. We can carry forward from here.
Thank you so much, Pranay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Without wasting much time, I would move forward. We are at 8:06. We will exactly try and conclude at 8:45. I request all of you to kindly park your questions in every 10 minutes or 15 minutes as we go along. We have the Q&A at the end, but I thought that we would create an understanding with regards to how the entire experience works. So let me take you through the presentation today and then tell you with regards to the concepts that we would be initially dealing with and how you would be basically understanding the various aspects with its concern to elevating a user experience. I hope my screen is visible to all of you.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Thank you so much. Now, all of us are very familiar with the terminology called user experience. But scientifically, what does user experience mean? And this has got both, an experience which is with regards to the psychology in the way the customer views you, to the other aspects. So we will first understand what user experience is. And let me take you through one of the cases that I wanted to basically tell you on with regards to the user experience. There's a video that will be played for you. So please pay attention to the video. I don't think the video is viewable. I'll send it across to you any which ways. Now, one of the most important things that I want all of you to understand is you all interact on a mobile phone. A mobile has basically called a screen, and the screen is basically considered as a user interface or an interface through which you give input commands or you view things. Now, whatever is viewable or is designed is basically designed a human being basically functions. So how you sleep, how you eat, and basically how you communicate all depends upon individual user preferences. These are basically called individual user preferences. And individual user preferences basically amounts to an important element which is called usability. When it comes to designing a user interface, let it be a web interface or a product interface or even an electronic interface for that matter of fact, it is very important to understand the user's dimension when it comes with regards to creating a user interface. The second most important thing is we receive inputs from users, individual users or corporate users, And then we design the entire aspect of basically creating an interrelationality between what the user wants and how the user can use it for making it of a viable purpose. So here, for instance, how you interact with a smartphone. Now, every individual smartphone, for that matter of fact, has got more than 6,700 functions, which we all completely do not know how to use. Now, your interaction with the smartphone is based upon the user applications or the indicative applications that you're comfortable with, you start using. Here, one of the most important things that you need to understand is home page, or for that matter of fact, a home page on which your mobile user comes in and logs into, basically is designed. Now, these design elements include a few things, which includes to create a user experience which is seamless. That's one. The second thing that is regarded most important is appropriate use of fonts, colors, and indicator figures, because you have a vast range of population to cater to. I would give you another example. For example, if you're going onto an e-commerce website, as simple as an Amazon, or even for that matter of fact, a Government of India website where you want to register yourself as an MSME and some other client searches for your product and does the selling. Now, what happens is the person basically starts searching for your product. From the search of your product, he comes down to narrowing down the product specifications that he is looking for. Interface which is designed for a particular person to search the information for either a B2C product or a B2B product or a B2 enterprise product depends upon the specifications that is related to the product. And this particular search information can be done by a purchase person. It could be done by an HR person. It could be done by a person who is there basically in finance. It could be done by a person in R&D. It could be done by a person even in, for that matter of fact, from any of the functions that is aligned within the organization. Now, it is very important for us to understand, since multiple users from different domains come to the user interface, it is important to design it in such a manner that each one of them find interest or also find a relativity to the kind of information that they're looking for. Here, you are basically trying to see that everything that is designed is not well defined, and hence Amazon today has got a B2B interface and a B2C interface for its customers. Now, how does it differentiate between a B2B interface and a B2C interfaces? A B2B interface basically is for a purchase, a product specialist, or probably even a finance specialist to come and view in the product. And here the entire interface is designed in such a manner that there are more information that is being provided, and you can do a comparative analysis with regards to each of the product specification in line to your search. Whereas when it comes to a B2B or a B2C segment, a B2C segment, for example, a simple purchase of, let's say, a mobile smartphone with a 6 GB RAM, and possibly, you have 125 GB SSD disk which is there in the mobile. Each of these features are basically called comparative features when it comes to a B2C interface. Now, why this particular design methodology changes is because the kind of requirement flow that is flooded into the user interface basically enables the user to select the product and then basically shortlist the product for future purchase, or for shortlisting the purchase of a product for future negotiations, or it could be also for advanced information search with regards to the industry that you're looking for. And hence what becomes very important is that you have to fact these factings back to the date we created the entire user experience design. Now, you have a 1 BHK house, you have a 2 BHK house, you have a concept of a studio. All these date back to the Roman century, which is 4th century BC. And basically the outlay that is given out there is based upon the user requirement. Your interface basically starts working towards defining the user's goal and challenges in order to meet their concern. Now, this might sound Greek and Latin to you, but please understand, if you're a mobile user, or for that matter of fact, an e-commerce platform user, based upon your previous night's search and based upon your interaction on the Facebook, or for that matter of fact, any of the other social media, including LinkedIn, or for that matter of fact, even Instagram or Twitter, it will show you new abrupt results which are related or correlated to your product. And hence, This enables the user interface to be designed in a new manner in which the user can get seamless information without having to search for it. And hence, we come to the most important aspect of understanding the user interface in order to understanding what is the durability, what is the usefulness, and what is the aesthetics with regards to the use of it. Now, this is true with regards to products. This is also true with regards to services. And how this works is, if we basically take a peek into the user interface, which is basically your usual experience, if anybody remembers, if we go back to the date in time when the first graphic user interface was created, it basically started off with early 1970s to 1980s, where the UX was also called the HCI. Does anybody here know what HCI basically stands for? Any idea with regards to what HCI stands for? What was HCI when it came as an interface model, when PCs became the mainstream of office automation product? So what does HCI stand for? Anybody? What does HCI stand for? Any idea what HCI is? Anybody? I'm just stopping here for a moment for the audience to basically try and make a note. What is this HCI? This is the mother of UX, which is basically a user experience. So what does HCI stand for? What is HCI?
Human computer interface or something?
Dr. Satish, you're almost there. Almost there. Anybody else? Yes, one person has texted saying that it's a
human-computer interaction.
Why is it called a human-computer interaction? Why is it a human-computer interaction? Any idea why it is called a human-computer interaction? Now, this is very critical if in the modern day, you're planning to design your website, or even if you're planning to design any material which a person is going to view, including your brochures, including anything. Basic HCI, and why is it so important? Why is it so critical? Ease of using, Mr. Rahul. Good.
So that machine can serve the human in better way.
Okay. Anything else?
Computer should understand what is the expectation from the users. So
Wonderful. Wonderful. Dr. Satish says medias are different. Anything else? Ladies and gentlemen, please remember that the kind of user who comes to your interface could be either blind, visually challenged, or could be even compelled, for that matter of fact, or for the lack of knowledge, lack of understanding with regards to the product or the service that you cater to, or even lack of understanding with regards to the features and the others that you have mentioned onto your interface platform. Now, what becomes important is to understand the psychology of an individual who has basically come into this user interface. And that's where we're going to take a view with regards to what is that a user interface is basically trying to do. So if you basically take an HCI, which is, predominantly psychology and the way people view things, people come from varied background, which is informed, not so informed, and absolutely illiterate with regards to your product and information. And this is where, when Xerox introduced the first PAC machine, it introduced the first user interface, which is called the graphic user interface. So here, there has to be an ease of use, like one of the participants mentioned. There has also got to be an ease of use with regards to how the product or the application can be used forward, which is basically in terms of usability and further on. Explosion. The interaction with computers increased as the graphic user interface became much, much more intuitive as they started interacting with humans. And this is where, based upon the media and based upon the concept, your web page, or for that matter of fact, your e-commerce platform enables you to basically understand the customer psyche, to take you forward in a journey which is called either a content journey, experience journey, or another important aspect which is concerned as for purchase is understood with regards to how the product can be understood on your web interface, or for that matter of fact, any interface which is there, which could be even on an AI or another platform. Now, as rightly mentioned by all of you, human-computer interaction was the mother of which is there. And UX today is basically understanding the visual aspect of it, the audio aspect of it, the design aspect of it, and also understanding how users can basically start integrating with your platform. Moving ahead, another important aspect which is there is people started hiring resources from cognitive psychology and also from a front which is basically with regards to computer science to design with regards to graphics. Now, graphic interface is a very critical element with regards to colors and others that you have to use to basically trigger the brainwave to take action with regards to your interface. And this is where a user experience is also critical for a chocolate wrapper, which basically a Cadbury designs with regards to his logo and puts a fruit and nut or a dairy milk or any kind of a sort of a product abbreviation which is there for the user to identify, even if the user has not tasted or understood the product inside. So the branding, the labeling, and the other concept of basically designing the entire wrapper is again with regards to a user interface for the product before it is purchased, is actually felt and understood with regards to how would the product taste or how would the product look like. That I want you to all concentrate on is there are few things that people need to understand when it comes to a user interface. A, is it the usability of the user interface? Usability means if I am a layman, find a 3-click platform where I select the product and service before which I search, select, after that I reach to my cart and then make a payment. So 3-click process which is there. You have to be as intuitive as possible because the human mind behaves in that manner, and hence you need also prompts to come in from your user interface to basically feed in the customer. This is basically true for both B2B as well as for B2C. More so for B2B because if you are an MSME entrepreneur running even a manufacturing setup and your overseas customers want to basically take your services, they are basically prompted based upon your Google reviews and your Google platform to know exactly where do you stand vis-a-vis others. Now, another important aspect of it is the motion graphics, the storytelling, and the linguistic ways of basically getting across to the customer through varied ways, video interfaces and other platforms through media through which you can connect. A very important element when it comes to a user interface. For example, before we even purchase a car, for that matter of fact, or even before we purchase, let's say, a CNC machine, the usability of a product labeling machine, a usability of a product which basically does packaging, a usability of a device which is for loading. All these things can be seen on a 3D platform to basically view and understand in terms of the product utility. Now, another concept which is there is with regards to the intuition when it comes to the total cost of ownership. And this is where a user interface basically triggers the information that the client is looking for with regards to providing them all those information when you prompt in something which is called a check questionnaire on the website. Or
I'm sorry, Mr. Rakesh, to interrupt this session, but I want to request Mr. Anil Jha to switch off his video. His video is disturbing the audience. Mr. Anil Jha, please switch off your video. Thank you. I am really sorry, Mr. Rakesh.
No worries at all, sir. No worries at all. I hope now it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. As we move forward, the UX design started its continuation from 1980. In 1990, it was called the interaction design. Why so interaction design is? Because the web world, which is the www of the world, started evolving in terms of creating interfaces, and e-commerce started booming in. And this is one aspect where people try to understand. One of the most critical element when it comes to a UX design is to understand the journey of learning about your product, which is basically called a customer journey or a buyer journey. A customer journey in one scenario, a buyer journey in a B2B scenario. And in this scenario, it was very important for people who are either from MSME or a corporate setup to understand how does the entire business get perceived online without you having an interaction. Now today, so it's more so important because we are in an age where probably we could have a third wave. We don't, but still, moving forward, what we need to do. Today's landscape where people basically watch content on smartphone. Everything is on virtual and augmented reality. So I would give you a VR device and you basically view it and see the entire product that I have for your description in a 3D mechanism where you can even have a touch and feel. The artificial intelligence basically prompts in all those requirements that you have previously done. And if I enable your cache, I can basically collect in all the user information to basically drive down to the last research that you have done even 1 year back. And that can feed in regards to what and all are you looking up. And basically, even before the customer comes across to meet with you or speak with you, the customer is fed in with all those information with regard to your product and services with which you can cater to that customer. So that's how a user interface is critical for this user interface or a user experience and design. What is it? As it is said, design is everything today. So a user experience starts with design. A touch and feel of a car, the color of the car, the ambience that you get sitting in the cockpit, which is basically your driver's seat, the way you see all your instrument panel, the way you're feeling comfortable sitting on the seat with your seat belt, which is on. And besides that, the comfort that you get with regards to the view of the car, with regards to when you're driving. All these things are basically with regards to design. And that's the reason today every automotive vertical also undergoes periodic design changes to meet in and fit in the new users' requirement. And the new users today are the millennials. So when you keep these things in mind, of it needs to be understood. So they could get in touch with you with any of these interfaces. It could be a computer, it could be a standalone, be a web interface. And tomorrow there is also something which is coming in, which is called as the one system interface, which is basically a tab or possibly a smaller version of it on which you can view anything with a projection. And hence it becomes very important entire process of interaction when the customer moves from a knowledge seeking stage, which is basically an awareness stage, into an information seeking stage, which basically goes on to specifics. So please understand, every customer that is interacting on your interface or every user who's interacting on your interface is basically coming with a goal and is also coming with a challenge. Now the goal and challenge is not clearly defined, and hence it becomes important for the user interface to create that challenge diversification vis-a-vis other product or service comparisons which is there in the market. Most important aspect of the pleasant journey that you need to bring in, where the user at the click of a button should be able to get the information. Another example that I would like to give you, if I'm basically buying a machinery which is made to order, case studies, and I start getting videos, and I start getting specific blogs related to that product and the functionality of the product and referrals to that product. Why do I get that? The reason I get that is, as I'm nearing closer to my consideration stage of a purchase, a user design which is there, which is basically the user experience or creating that magnificent experience on the user interface, enables the pleasant journey to discover and shortlist among the, let's say, thousands of suppliers of products and services. There are 5 of them who can basically provide the service that I'm looking for. So 70% of the research is today done online. This is true for all sorts of organizations, including B2B and B2C. More so, there are 3 levels of understanding these designs. Point number 1. One, that the product before it is purchased. So it could be a capital good. Before it is purchased, it has to be felt and understood. Another simple example that I can correlate with here is, let's say, for instance, iPhone launches a new phone, or let's say, for that matter of fact, one of the phone manufacturers launches a new phone. Even before the product is purchased, there are certain informations which is known as advertisement to us, but that is just to create a user experience with regard to how the product is different from the previous product, what enhancement has been brought in, what is the look and feel of the product, and before even you purchase the product, what do you understand of the product? The second most important thing that you need to understand is, when the product is basically felt and used, that's where you have a demo piece. But today we don't have a demo piece. That's where your artificial intelligence is basically catering in terms of creating projections of that image in a 3D format or a 4D format for you to have a look and feel of it through a projectionist which is there. Now you have also 4-dimensional, a screens that is there at home, which basically shows you the product in all different views for you to see it. Now this basically gives a different dimension altogether after it is being used. So the user experience doesn't get over with the purchase. It continues even after the purchase. And that's where the product refinement starts happening. And the product refinement enables the company to basically safeguard its complete value in terms of revenue mobilization. For example, if the lifetime of a product is 15 years, the customer comes back to the same product manufacturer for another enhancement of a product, or during the lifetime itself purchases the second product. And hence, a user experience is critical with regards to also an after-sale service. So with regards to an automotive, it is the after-sale service. So the salesperson promises or your ad promises, and after that, it basically creates an interface on the service platform as well. Now, another important aspect that I want all of you to understand is whenever you basically have a product preview, one of the most important aspects that the customer is looking for is the content around the product. Now, this is where the content around the product is specific. It cannot be generic. And this is what basically an interface throws in. Now, this interface, what it does is it creates an elevated user experience by showing exactly what are you looking for. And that is enabled through a digital platform. And it creates an information architecture with regards to how the information needs to be passed on. A finance person would view this information differently from a person who would be basically a user to also a functional level. Now, the platform will basically be varied. What I mean by platform here is various devices that you use. What would appear on a desktop would be different from what would appear on possibly a tab, what would appear on a smartphone. And the entire user experience that has been derived in through the user interface is kept as interactive as possible, such that you don't push information. And this is a pull information mechanism where the user basically wants to access the next bit of information. And the usability and accessibility of it is basically something which is called as store points. Now, what happens in the modern day interfaces that you can basically save a particular tab view and you can put it in private chat in any of your phones which is there. What it enables you to do is view it at leisure whenever you want it. And you can design your prompt based upon the requirement stage in which you are. Are you ready for purchase or still searching for information, and other aspects of it. Now, as we get into these stages, it is also important for us to understand a user interface, if you basically look into, has to be critically monitored and reviewed at every point in time. It has to be critically monitored and reviewed at every point in time. Now, we are going to go into a small, in terms of questions that can come in, and then we can basically start off with those questions. So I have one question that has come in. You can also ask me these questions verbatim, which is there. Prashant sir, there is a question that you have asked. Can you please explain a few metrics of successful UX design mechanisms for feedback from users? So may I know which industry are you from, Mr. Prashant?
Software development.
Mr. Prashant, what kind of software development do you do?
In all the domains, including banking and even the games, everything.
So this feedback that you want to do is from the user's point of view, or from the person who has purchased from the point of view?
From the user's point of view.
Okay. Now, with regards to your user interface, is it a graphic user interface that you have?
Graphical user interface.
Okay. Now, what are the few things that you basically do for a banking industry, where even if a person who is basically a new intern who comes in, what is the flexibility with regards to the usability of the individual? Does it have prompts which is there that needs to be thrown in for user acceptance, which is basically if you have a new interface introduced? And besides that, there could be a checklist that can be drawn with regards to users' lack of understanding of your interface. Now, it depends upon at what level your user is. Is he at a point in time where he has basically worked through the user interface, or at a point in time where the user basically is under the adaptation stage, or at an experience stage where he wants to tell you that a few things needs to be fixed up? So you need to plan it in a staged manner, where if it's a new product introduction, the ease of use, the ease of governance which is there, the ease of movement all across, the ease of the process which is there, understanding of the entire thing. And that's where you basically have something which is called as repeated training on the platform. Isn't it, Mr. Prashant?
Yes, you're right.
And the second thing that you would go across is when he gets to the next level, you basically design processes, which is basically drop and down buttons, which you can use for a form interface, which is there. Now, the advanced stage of it is when he wants something specific from you, where he has explored all the options. So this is basically called as a user interface lifecycle. And in the user interface lifecycle, if you remember, Mr. Prashant, as per the previous slide that I had shown you, it also talks about after sales, what happens after the product is purchased, after the interface is used. Now, this is where, Mr. Prashant, before you basically sell an interface, let's say, for instance, a Zoho CRM or others who sell such kind of an interface to a customer, the ease of use is basically monitored through a 15-day interaction, right? In that 15-day interaction that CRM platforms like Zoho does, what it does is it sees the amount of time that you spend on an interface, where you are getting stuck. And then you have, by default, a chatbot which basically prompts out to say that, are you finding this difficult? And then it prompts a small video, which is for about 15 to 20 seconds to help navigate through that process. Now, these are all different ways in which you can basically create a feedback mechanism. Another important aspect is definitely a check form, which can come at every stage. A check form is nothing but people select, click on the options that is viable and give you a feedback if it is required. So that would also come at varied point in time. So these are the various ways that you can take a feedback in a user interface. Query, sir.
Yes, thanks for structured and informative answer.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, there is another question that has come in is the advertisement info about new product, do they really become a part of the user experience? Yes, sir. Sir, one of the most important questions that I want to basically answer on is, an advertisement is today not an advertisement. It's today in a web interface called a content. It's called content. Now, what does content mean? Content is nothing but trigger mechanism for a person to identify whether this product or service into their segment or not. And hence, it becomes a very important part of the user experience because even before the product is purchased or felt, I'll give you a very simple example. We are all used to a mechanism of basically purchasing milk. But there is also a mechanism by which we also purchase milk powder. But the use of milk powder is based upon what is the requirement of an individual. Now, the advertisement says that we have milk powder which is lactose. This is something which is a new product that has come through a content advertisement. And the user doesn't want to buy a 600-gram pack, instead wants to try a 100-gram pack, which is called a sachet pack. And hence, the user experience is to measure both ways in terms of how the product has been felt, how the product was perceived in the content or the advertisement, and how the product was used and what is the feedback after that. And that's where, in those pack covers, you basically have a feedback with regards to a QR code which you scan and send a feedback with regards to what thing did you like and what thing did you not like. A very simple example that I want to tell you is Cadbury, Kurkure, and all those people come with varied products which is there. These are called self-promoted products, which basically comes in an advert. It also comes on your mobile. You buy this 5 rupee packet and you say, how did you like the taste? So this is again a user experience feedback that they're trying to take with regards to a particular product or a commodity. Now, Sanjay sir has a very important question. I am from automotive, which is there. The disruption is expected in electric vehicles where the UX and AI is very critical soon. It will also be autonomous driving. Absolutely right, sir. How do you see the Indian customers will interact with the awareness? I actually had a wonderful video today to show you with regards to how the user experience is changing and how people are getting used to, first of all, electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles. Now, I was in Dubai till about the time when the autonomous vehicle were introduced. What was done is Dubai Taxi Association, or which is called the RTA, basically started giving us taxis with autonomous methodology where you could sit in, you could wear the VR, and you could sit in the car and go along. The car would take you in a designated path without any much of traffic, and you had to feed in 3-point questionnaire to basically tell what your experience was or how your experience was. Even before this, Dubai Metro, if you remember, doesn't have basically a train driver. It doesn't have a pilot in the train. Very critical to understand that the users were made comfortable by saying that would they be willing to travel in a train which doesn't have a train driver or a signalman? The question is very simple. The question is user acceptance. And for the user to get accepted into things, you have to basically introduce the user to a platform. Now, what does a user experience also mean? It also means giving a real-time experience to the user. Example, letting a person use an EV vehicle for a period of, let's say, 2 to 3 days and feel the benefit of it. letting a person travel through an autonomous vehicle and understand it. I'll give you another simple example. In the days when basically the aeroplanes were basically brought into commercial flying, they were given free tickets for people to fly, for them to feel it. Because for people to fly through an aircraft, it would be from the most elevated class of people that who would prefer this kind of a mode of transport. And hence it became important for them to be given a real-time experience. And hence, for electric vehicles and other vehicles, most of the people who are accepting the products today are people who want to work with conservation of the environment. Second thing is they already have experienced it. Third thing is those who have not experienced it get to the platform to experience it. So Sanjay sir, I hope I answered your query.
Yeah. The only thing which I wanted to know from you is when it will go into autonomous driving methodology, our traffic situations are not so conducive compared to technology and the infrastructure for the road. So that time the user experience is going to be very critical for AI or autonomous driven vehicles.
Sir, Sanjay sir, wouldn't you also believe that it will be too early for autonomous vehicle to come into India because of the current of chaos system that we have? But yes, on a highway, once again, if there is a prominent flow of traffic, then it can be designed. Currently, it's in a design and test phase, even in Autobahn. You must have seen the Volvo FH909 Crop Series model is undergoing a complete test of such kind of a vehicle to basically see what is the viability when 110 plus more happen from different directions, which is in alignment to the Indian conditions. Because we have people also coming from the opposite direction.
Very true.
I think, as you said rightly, it will happen that they will allow it only on specific roads where there are a lot of protections available and no interference from other traffic is expected. So even in US and other advanced countries, these autonomous vehicles are not being allowed without the driver sitting there and maybe nudging the steering every 10-15 minutes or even less than that, maybe seconds. So
Absolutely.
that everybody is aware that the driver is still in control.
Thank you, sir. I wanted to tell all of you today that today there's another important point that has come into the chat. Advertisement is critically content today, and content should be provided in bytes. It's called BYTE or BITE as small bytes that you can take. Today's user are informed users. So it's called informed purchase and informed interaction, or an informed methodology of knowing what can do good for one or what cannot do for one. And hence, advertisement more so has moved into a content methodology where content can come in n number of media formats. There are currently 36 different media formats in which content can reach you, including prompts, SMS, WhatsApp, this thing which is there, blogs, all those things, including a PDF, an interactive PDF also can work through. Why these things are very critical is from an MSME point of view. Imagine a brochure that speaks to the customer. Now we are talking about a brochure that speaks to a customer. Basically enable this through an AI platform. The customer can speak into the brochure, and the brochure will exactly bring the customer to that point where what kind of information he or she is looking for. So we are talking about that kind of a development today on the virtual platform. And hence it becomes very important for us to get into that. And that's where I'm going to get you introduced to a new concept that we basically have to understand, which is getting done in the new millennium, which is there for the new millennial purchase people who are doing it. So is the screen visible to all of you? Is it visible? Now,
Yes, it is visible.
I wanted to basically tell you with regards to an MBUT, which is a basic model that we all need to keep in mind. What does this mean for? A product or service basically addresses three things that the customer is looking for. A need is basically an intrinsic or an extrinsic need the customer needs to satisfy. The future want is called a desire, or the desirability of where he or she wants to be. The requirement is basically the money that he has to procure that particular product or service from the manufacturer or the service provider. Very important to understand. Any product that the customer is looking for, he's looking for an ease to use, which is basically substituting the current mode and coming into a new mode, which is there. So understanding how the product or service would be of use to him. And that is where I told you content is basically a replacement of advertising. Both traditional way and the modern way will work because we still have a diverse set of people which is there. The most important aspect here is called the brand, the right brand to connect with the right segment. Now, even Tatas are coming with the electric vehicle. They have brought out a lot of electric vehicles which is there. But the first to basically bring down an electric vehicle was dated back about. There was a vehicle which was called Reva, which came into the Indian market, and it was too ahead of its time. It brought something which is there, a small mini-sized vehicle in which possibly at max 2 people could sit with 1 kid behind. Now, what happens is the brand is associated with a safety factor, customer moving into a new user experience, and hence a brand should basically be able to create the trust factor for the person to move into that segment. So this is where continuous content interaction with the customer is critical. The third most important thing is marketing. It is basically all the aspects with regards to understanding the consumer dynamics, consumer psyche which is there, the psychographics of it, and also doing a detailed market research with regards to the right audience, where you can design a campaign. And this campaign could be a content campaign, could be a digital campaign, could be an advertising in the traditional media, whichever format that you want to basically take through. The third most important thing is unboxing. Now, anybody who's not introduced to basically, let's say, an autonomous vehicle will be always scared to get into an autonomous vehicle. And hence it becomes very important to give them the trust, confidence, and faith and say that, wow, tomorrow I need not drive through this traffic. I can still get there without having any issues. And this is where a lot of people are going to get into these autonomous vehicles because it's become difficult to travel. Troubleshooting is another important aspect. Now, why I'm actually coming to this, let me tell you this. Now, there is a reason why autonomous vehicles have come into the market. Now, I wanted to stop at this slide and come back to the audience once again to basically understand, do you also understand why the clients are basically looking for autonomous vehicles? Why? Why is this need come in today? Any reason why this need has come in today? Sanjay sir, any reason why this need has come in today? Anybody else? Any reason?
People want comfort.
Comfort. What else, sir? Fuel prices. Okay. What else? What else?
Convenience.
Convenience. Excellent. What else? We are tired of driving environment. Excellent. What else? Sir, the average survey in Class A metropolitan cities is viewed as to travel 1 kilometer, it takes half an hour. In half an hour, if you do not have an automatic vehicle and if you have a geared vehicle, clutch is at half go. Half go means that you are not applying the complete pressure, but besides that, you have a strain on your leg because of which you develop all sorts of complications with regards to your veins and your system. Second one, your seating posture. You're constantly under pressure to press the accelerator. Then you have to press the clutch, play between ABC, which is accelerator, brake, clutch, and also play with the gear, which means cumulative tension. So the amount of time that people are basically in a tense situation is much, much more higher than the normal situation. It becomes very critical for the audience to understand that the requirement from the individuals have come to this. Today, the number of millennials who are trying to own cars has drastically dropped down, wherein the millennials are wanting to go out in a hired vehicle or probably a rented vehicle. And why so? Because they don't want to park a vehicle and be absolutely immobile in terms of travel. This is one of the user segment that is identified. The second user segment that has been identified is for people to understand how does the entire business scenario work. The entire business scenario works upon user-driven market. Today's user-driven market wants customers to basically come back and say what is that is important. And hence it becomes important for you to do regular marketing campaigns to understand and take a feedback from your customer with regards to usability. That brings us to another important point, which is basically how do you basically understand this usability. Now, please pay attention. Usability changes from time to time. Hence, this element which is there is subject to a variable called time, subject to a variable called need, subject to a variable called requirement, and subject to a variable called want. More importantly, in the modern day, all the users basically who interact with the interface are looking for seamless information at a click of a button. And this talks in also like the smartphones that you use. Today, if you want to search a location, you can speak into your smartphone, and the smartphone also understands the vernacular language to basically get to your location. Why this facility? Because if you're driving, you speak into your Bluetooth speaker through the phone, connect to your smartphone, and the address basically pops up on your Google. The entire aspect of it is to give an elevated user experience without having to prompt. Second thing, if you have a calendar like a Google Calendar integrated with Alexa, Alexa would speak to you to say that on the way back, please pick up milk. Or it will dial out through your red basket to basically call your nearest service provider to deliver milk by the time you start. So all that you have to do is to integrate the platform. Now, the entire user experience is basically designed in such a manner, but today's users do not want to micromanage things, but want to macro manage things. And hence, it becomes critical for us to basically use the interface in this one. So we have reached the end of it. So we are at 8:49, we are touching 8:50. Now I'm open to questions, because the reason being, the entire UX experience model which is there is close to about a 1.5-year course. Now if I start giving you a UX, it wouldn't help. But I wanted to set the fundamentals for you to start understanding about UX with regards to your website, with regards to your product, with regards to your services, with regards to what content you want to float out, with regards to anything that you want to do with interacting with your customers. So I'm open to questions now.
Yeah, sir, I am here, Satish here.
Hello, sir.
I read somewhere else that on the Netflix, they are giving such a movies that based on the facial expression, they are changing the end of the movies. Means, for example, based on the facial expressions they are catching, and based on that, they are adding some stuff or the masala based on the facial expression. There, even the user need not give the formal feedback, but they are catching the facial expressions, and based on that, the entire story itself they are changing dynamically. I heard that. So, is it the example of this elevated user experience?
Sir, it is actually. For instance, I want to give you this example. 15 years back in Malayalam industry, there were two famous film stars who acted in one movie where Juhi Chawla was acting. There was Mammootty and there was Mohanlal. In one, Mammootty doesn't get married to Juhi Chawla. In the second one, Mohanlal doesn't get married to Juhi Chawla. Now, these were played differently in different theaters depending upon the kind of fan following that region had. And hence, Netflix is also predicting the same thing. Let me give you another example. If you're using, let's say, for instance, your phone, in the morning, if you pick up your phone and you have a habit of reading your astrology site, based upon your facial expression, and if you are basically a subscribed user, not a free user, subscribed user, your astrological chart would change depending upon your facial expression to make you happy. So this is feasible. Second thing is, based upon your facial features and your taste bud, which after you have ordered on, let's say, Zomato, Swiggy, or for that matter of fact, since all these applications have a direct correlation to your gallery, it picks up the next photo that you have picked up and the review that you have put saying that aaj khana acha tha, aaj khana acha nahi tha, which basically leads to the fact where the user experience is understood and the rating directly gets fed in, and the person who's telling from the stall is also known for the fact that the user did not like the food today. So all these things today are completely dynamic, Dr. Satish. And why this dynamicity is because today's customers' loyalty and brand information is much, much lesser as compared to the times that we were in. I hope I've answered your query, sir.
Yes. Thank you very much.
In fact, today Steven Spielberg has signed up with Netflix to make movies with dramatic endings which would meet customer expectation.
I think Dr. Satish has one more questions.
Please, ma'am.
Question here. Yeah, Dr. Satish Sinsorkar asked about user experience is a function of user wants or user needs. How to differentiate it for advanced and emerging technology? And second question is, user may not know all features of technology, hence user experience may impact it. How to avoid this? These two questions he asked.
Let me also cover these questions. Now, one of the most important things that you have to understand with regards to a user is a user buys a product for X features. So if your numerator and denominator is X by Y, all the Y features would not be explored, where there is always a gap of delta. Now, one of the important things that we basically design in an interface is for us to understand that the products that we create basically meets the wider audience requirement, which is called a classification bucket or a segment. That segment is basically called a customer segment, into which we believe that these features would be used. And hence, from an intermediary to an advanced user, we let those features remain because the value that it offers in terms of experience is much more higher. And that is the reason today you have a Google Play Store or possibly another app store from which you can download an app based on your requirement. And hence, that is the reason why today's phones have also an interface which enables you to download so much of content onto the phone so that you're replacing the laptop or the devices to use one device as one platform. Now, the second most important question is, for every individual customer who is basically buying high-end product or low-end product, you need to understand something. There is an important aspect of usability and economics. Usability is what a person uses. The economics is what returns that a person gets out of that use and every time use. For instance, I might use an Instagram reel once every month. But when I come to a teenager, an Instagram reel is used once every 1.5 hours during the day. So the entire user experience is depending upon the amount of customers on your total interface, who is basically the largest audience, and you start catering to them because this is the revenue making mechanism. And hence it becomes very important for you to understand this. Now, Sanjay sir had another very important question which said that, does this mean that companies are collecting user inputs? Yes, it is. And that's the reason why Europe has become so very strict regards to all the information that is getting collected. I hope I've answered all your queries.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else?
Yes, sir. With that said only, I just have a adjoining question attached to it only, especially for B2C industry, business to consumer industry, that when a company or a organization runs on a platform of particular service, there are n number of things that they cater, right? Lot of things. But when it comes to making a simplified UX design, there are sometimes complication to it, and a customer might not end up finding what he exactly or she exactly want to find. There must be some things that they have to go deep dive into. How can a company make it very simple for them in the latest trends? You must be following the latest trends, sir. How can companies usually basically makes it adaptive for a user to understand their need and directly show that particular thing? You can tell the existing technologies that are currently there, or maybe which are being planned, or maybe in your experience, what can be done?
See, Pranay, there is one important aspect that we need to understand. We need to understand which customer segment are we planning to cater to. Now, a business that caters to a metropolitan, to a semi-metropolitan, to an urban rural, to an absolute rural will have different interfaces. Now, let me tell you, there is today a modern mechanism in Google App Store which basically locks down the location in which you work. For example, I am from a pin code area which is into the most remotest location in Kohima. And I would get a user interface depending upon what feasibility is there in that area and based upon the user preferences model. So this is where your social media platform and your Instagram, all those things, why it is bought is because 90% of the interaction happens there. The moment 90% of the interaction happens there, it basically a user preference. And based upon the user preferences, your app creators today create multiple apps for varied regions. So based upon pin code also, the app basically starts. So if you have a Swiggy, which is there just outside Bangalore city, it doesn't work. As soon as you come into the Bangalore city, the service gets activated. It's all depending upon how you enable the app to work. Second thing is the interface that you're talking about, a simple interface. if you basically look at the adverts which goes from an Amazon to a rural segment, because 86% of our postal systems which receives parcels today receive Amazon and Flipkart parcels. And how they function is they have just a 3-level interaction which is given. A 3-level interaction where search, select, purchase. Search, select, purchase. Now these are very specific interaction where you and I do not know when we are sitting in Pune or possibly in Chennai or Bangalore, how does this interface look? But if you have taken a smartphone of a person who's using a low-end Samsung mobile and is from a local area which is there, his interface would be completely different from our interface. So that level of customization is also possible. It can also open on your browser window. It can also open on your application which is there. The elevated UX, I hope, Pranayji, I have answered your query.
Yes, you have answered the query. As per the geographical locations also, the platforms are changing these days. So this is a very good insight, sir. Thank you so much.
Another important thing that Mr. Sanjay has mentioned is the elevated UX is controlling the mind of customers to a large extent. Does this lead to an army of users with specific mindset? Sir, today's people are very smart. These are called informed buyers. So if you basically ask any of the software developers or anybody who has a product which is basically a SaaS product, 96% of people basically come into using a particular product. They use the demo period, and after that they don't purchase with you because they're simultaneously testing others.
Yeah, but will it lead to divisions in society, and there is a social aspect going forward with this technology? Do you foresee something of that sort?
Sir, it all depends upon the individual which is there and the kind of background that they come in from. I have not personally, done a research on it, but to be very factually with you, you know the number of people who were using PUBG. Do you remember PUBG, sir?
Yeah.
Right. So what did it create? It created a mindset and a divide in between the parents and the children who were using it.
Correct.
Right. And that was so because most of us felt that they were getting addicted. To be very frank with you, we were also addicted. Right. You remember the solitaire that was there when Windows was launched?
Yeah.
We were also addicted. So there is something which is called stimuli trigger points, which is basically done through a user interface for you to get glued onto this to purchase from a free to a paid version.
Correct.
And that is basically called as a driven methodology or a push methodology or an attract methodology when it comes to customer interaction. So this is all from the point of view of economics or revenue.
Okay.
Marketing will show the business, sales will get the business.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Satish, for your feedback. If any one of you want to be in touch with me, I'll share with you my LinkedIn and also, where you can get in touch with me. So I'll share with you. You can also follow me on Instagram, wherein I continuously, regularly upload information which is there with regards to supporting MSME and entrepreneurs. So I do that. Follow me on that. Just give me a moment. In fact, the PDF document itself, which was given to you, a link with regards to my page. So here I'm pasting it. There you go. So if anybody wants to be in touch, you can click it there. To this, I just wanted to give you an introduction to the user design because this is very critical element today.
Pranay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, Anita, ma'am. Tell me.
Yeah. Pranay, please closing remark.
Yes, thank you. So, indeed, it has been an eye-opener for all of us. The perception we had for UI and UX designing was really different than what we actually learned today, especially based on the current technologies that sir actually told. When I remember when he told me about how in Kohima the things might be different, and when someone moved inside a metropolitan city, exactly in a tier A city, the things changed, the UI design changed. In a rural system, it changed. So these are some of the things that we all need to understand, especially when we are dealing with this kind of VUCA world in the current scenario, where we know customers are everywhere and we have to capture all customers.